this thing up and functional.
Hold the pen.
So, and that's the other thing that was important on this was timing, and I chose components that'll get done quickly. Not something that you're gonna, it's gonna take a year to construct or anything like that.
What I passed out is something that came through the mail for us maybe a month or two ago. And it's from the Montana Board of Investments. This is the Intercap Loan Program. And the contacts for us are Julie Flynn and Louise Welch. And what it is a variable rate loan program available to Montana local governments for 1% financing. So we do have PILT funds. We have about 1.1 million in total assets right now of PILT. Every year we've used a chunk of PILT to help out either a department or for some unforeseen emergency. Maybe this year the chunk of PILT that we use to invest in the county is to address some of these needs. We know what the needs are. They're not going away. Do we address the solution or kick the can down the road? It's kind of the place that we're at here. So, we have some different options. We can certainly mull that over. What are you guys thinking?
I think we've kicked the can down the road well long enough.
We've been on this for 2 years.
Yes, we have.
So,
No, we've got some options there now that we can
Mm-hmm.
look at and kind of decide on. See what could be cut and or something had to be added or something to that effect.
Down at the road department down in their area, where would you put that building?
Probably on the back, so the northeast corner of their yard right now.
Okay.
Back towards the vacant lot that's just east of the canister site. Talked to Dana about that. If he put storage back there, and it would probably be best served right there, because they could just pull their graders around and back them back in. As far as the storage for the canister site, I haven't necessarily talked. I know they have that one little area that's just west of their facility, but I needed to flesh that out a little bit more with Brian about where he would want it.
Well, because I was thinking, you've got graders running in and out, backhoes running in and out,
Yes.
and the like, and the public coming
Yeah.
to talk to somebody at 4-H, for example.
Mm-hmm.
We need to have, we could divide
Well,
that away.
and that's most of the reason why I separated. When you've got a lot of heavy equipment around public or even other county employees who are not necessarily used to that, it's a safety danger. It's not
Yes,
a good,
it is.
it's not a good situation. Puts more liability on the county. So if you separate, solid waste and road out of that equation, I think that helps you considerably. Then you're down to search and rescue and weed and mosquito, which are more normal sized vehicles. They're not heavy equipment vehicles. And anything as far as chemical storage and, their fill site and things like that could be fenced, locked, and away from, kind of on the side of the building, away from the public.
I got thinking about that this weekend. We have to be able to protect the public.
Yeah. Yeah. I think it's definitely in your best interest to separate the heavy equipment from.
Because a person could put a gate down at that north end
Yes.
to access instead of driving through the road department's and bridge stuff.
Yeah. There's a lot of different ways that could be approached.
One question we have, since we have Sean here and we have most of our department heads here, Franklin, you had mentioned cutting. Just for the sake of conversation, what are you thinking about?
Until we go through all this, we don't know yet for sure.
Well, we started this, what was it, 2 weeks ago? 2
Yeah.
weeks ago. This is little changed. We've had the spreadsheet for a couple of months now.
Well, yeah, just now bringing it out, getting it.
I'm just thinking, we've got everybody here. We've got, Brian and Scott and Wynn and Mike taking time out of their work. if there is something to discuss that could be cut, I think this is the time to do it with Sean sitting here. I just want to make sure that all discussion's out on the table today. All ideas are out on the table today, so that we have everybody here that can address those. Any thoughts you want to question, Franklin?
No, I should get all the ideas out, that's fine.
The one thing I'll bring up just real quick to address Elaine's question here is, there is, if you look at the map, which is right behind the memo, there is a street right-of-way that goes into the county parcel that's currently undeveloped. That could be made into an access for that side. So you could essentially isolate solid waste and road from that side. Now, I know Dana would have maybe some concerns because he's got stockpiles and things like that that would need to be addressed. And maybe we just kind of isolate a portion of that or something so he could access the rest. I'm not sure how that would necessarily work, but that is an alternative.
Did he mention the other day he'd be willing to move those stockpiles and this was a good time because they're smaller
He did,
into his yard?
he did mention that, yes.
Okay, just making sure I didn't misunderstand
He
something.
did mention that, but he did say that if you were gonna pull the trigger on something, he would need to know soon, because that is a lot of work to move piles.
Yeah, and he wants to
And
move
it's-
small piles
The
versus
smaller,
big.
the smaller it is, the less effort that is, and he is a busy guy, yes.
Yeah. One question for Brian. We had talked in our meeting about a recycling and building for your loader. Close to where you're at right now, would that be an area that would work for you for that?
Well, since we've already spent the money and put power into that spot, that would be the ideal location to build a storage spot for our equipment. We could enclose our baler and give us a spot to store equipment in that location. So,
And then you're far away from the public coming to the extension weed, the public offices,
right.
which yours isn't.
Well, we're public, but. our
Right, but you're not
office
gonna
is
have people
located
coming
there.
by to talk about stuff in an office
You never
setting.
know.
Good point.
Or I can say something.
Yes,
I'm with Search and Rescue. One thing we may consider in there is proximity to where our rescues are. An ice rescue in the winter, we have maybe 30 minutes. If we're coming all the way to town, picking up an ice rescue vehicle, we're looking at addressing, getting back out, we're 30 minutes is gone. If we're looking at somebody stranded in a boat, 30 minutes in 6-foot waves, we don't know where they're drifting off to. So for us, a better location would actually be if we could get closer to the silos. Our ground rescues are always 2 to 3 hours out. They've been looking for them, the family's been calling around. They're not as an immediate a need, where a boat and an ice rescue, time is a big thing. So if I'm coming from there, I'm coming 15 minutes in here, 15 minutes back. And even, when you got somebody out there bouncing in a boat for a half an hour and then in a wave, chances are they're out of the boat, they've been washed over, they're both swamped. Proximity for us is a little bit of an issue, especially because of the size of the lake and it is so nasty. So we might address our location relative to the lake too.
okay, thank you. Brian?
On that point, there is a shop that I believe is owned by Jim Foster, adjacent to the Land Tamer building. That is for sale, I believe, or it was. That might be a decent location for search and rescue. And it's a fairly good sized shop right now, so.
All right, any thoughts on that, Sean? It's new information that really has just come up
Yeah,
today.
I haven't considered that yet, so have to see, how big it was and look at it.
It hasn't
How
been
much
used
ground
long.
there is there?
How much ground there is, that's a big one, yeah. I mean, how big it is, if it would work.
Yeah.
So it's something I could look at.
Okay.
Has anybody from Search and Rescue gone out and measured that building so we know what size it is, and does it have concrete floor?
Which one's that?
The Foster building, on flats,
Just out there.
okay.
Just for argument's sake, anything on that highway, you've got some issues that the highway department's gonna have to start addressing, and most of us know how many near misses there's been at Landtamer with people getting on and off the highway. Plus, it's prime real estate for businesses. I know a number of manufacturing companies that are looking at that, so I'm guessing the price is gonna be a lot higher than what we're looking at for land already owned by the county. With that said, though, there's Winston that has the fire district there. Is there a way to, you know, piggyback with them somehow? Is there land around it that we could maybe purchase at a reasonable rate, something along those lines? But another idea too is that storage facility that's right there by the silos, by the KOA. Would search and rescue be able to rent a unit, a storage unit, just for the boat or the basics that you need for just what you've described, and have your training meeting facility and the ground rescue equipment more on already county property, so that we're keeping the price down? Is that too convoluted, or are those some options that would work for you
It has
guys?
potential to the point of, we always have to have a vehicle hooked to the boat, we get a ground rescue with four-wheelers, we still have to go out there, get the pickup to bring it back in here to hook onto another trailer, same with snowmobiles. Then we become shuffling vehicles if we're not centralized, I think.
Mhm.
But there again, it doesn't have to be a highway frontage building either. It could be back off the road, potentially on BOR if they purchase that.
Having a boat somewhere around or very close in proximity to Canyon Ferry would benefit us, actually, than trying to drive through town, through traffic to go to the lake. There's no boat ramps on the east side of the lake until you get clear up to, what is it?
I'm trying to gravel Confederate, otherwise it's Hellgate.
Yeah, Hellgate, that's what I'm trying to think of. That's the only concrete ramp. Otherwise, it is, you back into gravel. So, and it can be done, but it's pretty tough. Trying to put a 24-foot boat out there, you know, it's not like you gotta go fishing it.
So potentially, if you guys could do some homework and find out where there's some land, what the cost would be, perhaps we could look at the same option that Road and Solid Waste are looking at, and that's the pole building, just for the equipment that you need for lake, whatever it is, boat and truck and whatever else.
We still have to address heat though, because we do have to keep the jet boat warm. We can't let the motor freeze. About the first time somebody forgets to drain everything when you go on a call, then it throws up a number of $10,000 on the motor. And water rescues are realistic. I've voted out here to 1st of January. So I mean, it's not just a summer issue, it's also a cold weather until, because our territory goes to Hellgate, sometime out into the lake doesn't freeze until January, February. In which case, we're still responsible. We have to have a viable boat warmed up, ready to go that will start, so we'll still have to address heat.
Where, with that in mind, then, is there people, I mean, I guess, just wanna make sure that if it was out in that area, there would be people that'd be able to check on it every day.
Right now, we're about 30% of our members live within about 3 miles of the landing, 10% are at the Toston end, the rest of them are in town here.
Okay.
And I assume that probably because of the nature of boating, people are gonna be active in search and rescue, so probably the north end probably will always maintain about 30% of our membership.
Okay.
In which case, our response time is 3 minutes instead of,
Yeah,
There.
I'm just thinking more from a maintenance standpoint. If you had something out by the silos, say, would somebody be able to look at it every day and go check on it every day to make sure it's, you know, the heat's still on?
I'm a maintenance guy.
Okay, that would be my only concern there. Just isolating a little bit would just make sure somebody's there all the time.
John is our head maintenance man for the search and rescue, so.
Okay.
So how soon do you think you guys could maybe put together some ideas, something concrete for us to look at? Could you have that by next Monday?
You will work.
I can talk to Jim.
Okay, all right. Because if nothing else, we need to have as many answers as we can, and all the questions asked at this point, so everything's been addressed, regardless of how we move forward. Right. Anything else? One other thing on the funding that we could consider, I mean, there's a lot of different options, but we could look at a 50-50 as far as using a chunk of PILT to pay for this, and then also loan for some of it, and then have the department heads involved pay for it through a number of years from their budgets. Those are some options. That way there's skin in the game and buy-in for each of the different departments.
Yeah.
And I think it's appropriate that the departments pay for this to some extent. But the one thing that I think we cannot overlook is the chemical issue. We could go ahead and wait till we are tagged with a fine, in which case we pay a hefty fine, and then we also have to address what we're addressing today and the need to have appropriate storage. Or we could wait till there's a chemical spill. Then we could pay with county funds to clean up the chemical spill, and then also do what we're doing today and talk about how we're gonna address appropriate chemical storage. I just think that, you know, that the time for kicking that can is past. We've kicked it enough, and we need to either commit to addressing some of the needs that again have been brought up for the past 2 years, or we need to say, you know what, we're on record that we're just gonna ignore these needs and not do anything. But this is not something that we can just continue to float on.
I agree on
So we have a budget meeting on Wednesday. We could address some of this, of course. I don't know, Wynn, do you have any thoughts? You're sitting with Mike back there, do you have any thoughts?
Well, I've got lots of thoughts. What would you like me to do?
This will be entertaining.
Just, oh, you want some user friendly? You know, there's some pros and cons. And if we could find a spot that was feasible in the silos area, that would probably be beneficial. The only downfall is that we put something out there. When it comes to rock rescue, our rock rescues have occurred in the avalanche area. That means we're traveling all the way around the lake. That's a downfall. If we have, a lot of our rescues are water-based on Canyon Ferry, very few within the river between Townsend and Toston. And then most of our hunting issues that we've had in the last few years have either stemmed from the elkhorns. We've covered that very well here in the last couple of years, as well as up in the Highway 12 area. There again, we're back on the going around the lake issue. Avalanche issue is obviously up Highway 12 in the Baldy Mountain, Edith Mountain area. That's where we had the last one at. And so that's the only downfall, is if we put it out in that silos area, when we do have those, our response times are gonna get very big because we have to travel all the way around. It'd have to be on the east side of the lake. It goes out by the silos issue because trying to get across that highway is retarded anymore, for lack of better words. So that would be a thing. Essentially located in the, if we put it down in town, it is kind of a hit and miss either which way we go. The only other concern I really have is if we put it out somewhere is vandalism. And that's just from my law enforcement aspect, is something out of sight, out of mind, tends to get messed with quite a bit. But like I said, most of our, probably 70% of our calls are not water related out of Canyon Ferry. You know, I don't know how to, there's nothing we can do about that. I mean, we do spend a lot of time up in the Elkhorn, so I mean, you know, if we went back and looked at the calls in the last 5 years, you know, probably majority of them are Canyon Ferry West. So I just don't know anywhere that's reasonable, I guess, in cost for land, and that would be my concern. Because you're not just talking about a small chunk, you're talking about a fairly large chunk of ground. And a lot of that subdivision area is not overly cheap. but anything up by the highway is not cheap. So I don't know, it kinda puts them all different, log on the fire, I guess, in my own, so. If that helps.
It does,
Okay.
thank you. Any thoughts?
You know, the Foster building's been sitting there unoccupied for quite some time, so I'm wondering if a person could buy it at a reduced cost. And I don't
It's
know,
possible.
you know, I have no idea, and I don't have any idea on the size of it.
Maybe that's something for you guys to do, is at least get a price, so we know what the starting point is, at least with that option.
And the size.
And the size, yeah.
Well, I think one of the things that would really help is if we could somehow, we still need this larger building. We have more equipment we're gonna need, there's no doubt. We need to get a riverboat, which we don't have right now. We have a raft down there that is.
Flat.
How old is that raft, John? That's
34 years.
34 years old. And calling the company, they said, I wouldn't use that. So the only boat we actually have right now is that 24-foot jet boat. It's big, it's heavy for the river.
And it's 32 years old.
And it's 32 years old. So we're looking at increasing our equipment, upgrading our equipment. So I don't want to take the building out of the picture for down here. But I would also like to look at possibly a building large enough for the summertime to house our boat and a pickup ready to go at the silos area.
So would that,
That's where we use it.
would
So,
that need heat?
Yes,
Would need
if we keep it there all winter.
heat. Yeah, I was just saying, you were just saying.
If we keep it there just for the summer, no, I think we could get by with,
You wouldn't be
No, no.
using the boat in the winter.
not once
Ice
the ice,
rescue.
not once the ice comes on, but we'll
Yeah.
be using
That
it
can be
until
January when the ice comes.
January.
Yeah, there's a lot of cold spells between.
Oh, like we
Mm.
fished in January out there. But that would be the main thing, but I don't want to take this other building out of perspective because we definitely have to get newer equipment, larger equipment, more equipment. I mean, we're gonna need the space in 4 or 5 years down the road, like you say. An alternative of having a 30 by whatever length, 50-foot building to house the boat out there where, like John said, most of our members are out in that area and it's quick response. They can be there and in the lake before I can drive from Toston to town here.
We
So
worked,
just something to consider, which we will consider.
we worked with Wynn this past week on shuffling out some of these ideas, and Sean, based on that, developed a proposal for how big the storage facility would be with room to grow specifically for search and rescue. And that was a big part of the conversation. So what I'm hearing, and correct me if I'm wrong, is it would probably be wise to keep the central location, which is, you know, within a block or two of where you're at now. But you guys would like separately to investigate something for ice rescue and the boat in the summer or January without ice in the silos area. But that would be separate of what we're talking about here with the storage facility in the building, right?
Could we, or yeah, that has potential.
Okay, so we could still move forward with this idea perhaps on Wednesday, and you guys could come to us on Monday or through Wynn, whatever works for you
I'll be
guys.
moving horses on Monday, preparing for the rodeo.
Oh, yes, you've got a full plate. All right, well, you guys could come to us on Monday with anything that you found or what you're working on, or just give a call if you need more time. Does that sound like it's doable, or am I way off base
No,
on what
that'll
you
work.
guys are proposing?
That'll work, we'll have something.
Okay. The other thing to think about is the fire district gets easements for their firehouses. Something search and rescue could ask some landowners for is an easement. You know, an acre of land. Yes, Wayne?
Not to interrupt. Is the silos owned by the county?
No.
No?
The KOA is private and the campground, the Broadwater Bay campground area is owned by BOR. We're just a manager, co-manager.
Well, I wonder if BOR, since search and rescue does protect their interests as well, if they wouldn't be more apt to do a MOU, I guess, to give up a spot just as you come through the gate, or the paying post, or whatever it is, as you enter the Silos campground area, where a boat, a building could be constructed for a boat and a trailer. Then the guys could show up, just roll right down to the marina, and away they go. I don't know if that's possible. I don't know why not, but, yeah. The power's gonna run right by there, because there's a power box down there by the marina now, where they have a light shack. So, I guess that's an idea, a conversation piece. You know, unfortunately, the guys are right, it's, you're in a time crunch matter. Summertime, you know, wintertime, when they go through the ice, we have a little more time. And not to sound horrific or cold, but when people go through cold water, they're not dead until they're warm and dead. That gives us a little bit of time to, you know, we have a little more space to work with. When it's summertime and 90 degrees outside and they go down, our window of opportunity is very short. We don't have much time to recover and do any sort of rescue with them, just because of the situation. When they go through the water, when it's 45 degrees, it shuts the body down a lot before they get to a point where they are no longer recoverable. So they make very valid points in that aspect, that we're on a very short time window, especially during summertime accidents, where alcohol and possibly drugs are involved in most of those incidents as well. So just food for thought, I guess, at that juncture. That might be something we need to have a discussion with the folks at BOR to see if that's possible. Because I don't think it would interfere, and it would obviously protect them as well. So reduce some liability on their aspect. But
That's a good point. We could even ask them to help with funding as well as FWP.
yeah.
We can send an email off to Sean Bryant this afternoon and at least start that conversation. Working with BOR takes a while. Everything has to go through this office and then gets transferred to Billings and often gets lost and sometimes makes it back here. But there's no reason we can't start that question today and see what kind of feedback we get. So, and that would be, you know, I would think if they could just give us the property or at least, that'd be the best way to go. So,
We know this is not gonna happen overnight, right? So this other building is very, very important. We still need to house our boat as it is now.
so the Silos location is maybe a phase 2? Start working on it now with the idea that
I would
it's
probably
an addition?
concentrate more on the main building that we're talking about for all of our equipment.
Okay,
And then we can check into this silos area thing as we go, and hopefully BOR and FWP, and if they can help us out, we may have something there a lot sooner than this building will be built.
that I doubt, but it's nice, positive thinking.
So,
Yeah, we'll put the ask to them, it doesn't hurt to ask.
right,
Yeah,
we
you
appreciate
bet.
that.
All right. Yes, Joan?
Is there any state land in that area?
That's what we're talking about is FWP and BOR. FWP is the water, BOR is the land. They are federal though,
Yeah,
yeah.
the state might be interested in.
They might be. The fire districts approached BLM in the past, and I don't think anything's happened with that. But we certainly could ask. Lynn, do you know an answer on that?
Fun.
Oh, I thought you had a hand up.
No, I was waving at the judge.
Oh. We can ask, we can put it in our ask out there.
I don't think so. Across the road would be
All right.
away.
Anything more from this board?
I was thinking.
So we could potentially, how about this, we table it today so that we could make a decision on Wednesday on this, unless you guys want to make any kind of a decision now. Again, it's not like this just popped up and it's new information. We've certainly had
Well,
other
we
facts
didn't
to.
have come up again today,
What's that?
I said different things have come up already today, so maybe next week, give it all a little time to see what we generate. Also, I brought up somebody did here not too long ago, that building from the Bureau on Canton Lane, that would probably be available for us. Was you the one that brought that up?
Wasn't me, I didn't.
Okay. It could be moved, it had to be moved, you know. And I'm not sure.
If I'm thinking of the one you,
Huh?
if I'm thinking of the right one, that's not very big though, is it?
I don't remember the size. I know that you are kept some equipment in it,
Uh,
but I guess that'd be another thing to check on, to see what.
Yeah, I mean,
I
if
can't
you
remember
could-
who mentioned that. Maybe Brian's got his hand up, maybe he's the one that brought it up.
No.
Oh,
Go ahead, Brian.
So am I taking it from this meeting, and I need to go back to my solid waste board and say we need to brush off our study we did a couple years ago and proceed looking at building a building? So we're on our own?
Which actually might actually get it done since we're talking about tabling it for another week and then
Okay.
maybe another week. So,
Do I
Yeah.
need to include that in my budget for the next fiscal year?
yes and no. Yes, you certainly could. If you wanna, talk to us about a 1% loan, we can do that for your department. If you want a loan from PILT, your department did that years ago before Elaine and I were on the board, certainly look at that. Or if I'm not mistaken, you have it in your budget, you know,
We're
you
gonna
can
have to
do
get
it that way.
started in.
Right, absolutely. So I think you've got a lot of different options. I'd say
Okay.
roll them over and you can come talk to us on Wednesday if you want to, or just tell us what you're gonna do.
Well, then I would ask Sean to fine tune this just a little bit more
Yep.
for next week.
I can do this.
So should we schedule another meeting for next week
Yeah,
then?
we did.
All right. Hopefully the same time, because it's easy.
Yeah.
This looks good, don't it, Sean?
It's a start. It's a start.
yeah, you can get started, and then, it's hard to say which way. I mean, there's a lot of.
Oh,
I can fine tune the costs a lot more and actually get quotes for these building sizes, and, you know, so we'll have more pinned down numbers too.
okay. Yep, yep. All right, so we got you at 11 o'clock next week.
Okay.
Department heads, 11 o'clock next week. When, can you cancel the rodeo so you can be here?
Probably not.
All right, I guess you're excused.
I might get in trouble if I do that.
Just let those horses go.
I won't be able to make it next week.
Okay,
We have our EWM work going on next week.
ah, excellent, all right. You guys, thanks for coming. Definitely having the board here, I think is a tremendous asset. If you guys can come again next week, that'd be great. But I appreciate you coming this week. So anything else from you guys?
I think it was kind of briefly mentioned, but yeah, as we've stated before, we're more than happy to put what funds we can towards a new storage and washout loadout facility. But the one thing that I haven't heard mentioned that was mentioned in outside meetings is this new facility for the storage and washout loadout facility will also be a valuable tool for fire. It'll be set up in a way that the fire departments can come in and load their equipment.
Thanks for bringing that up. That's, the way we have talked about doing this is setting this fill site up so that it's hooked into more of like a 6-inch water main. I mean, they pull that switch and fill it pretty quick. They could also use it for fire fill if they needed to as an alternate site.
Don't they have that down there?
Yeah,
The
they
city
do.
does.
They do. But
But if there was some kind of a serious emergency where they
It'd
needed
be
to be
almost
filling
like a
multiple
backup,
trucks. Yeah.
I mean, the real point is just, you don't want somebody waiting for a garden hose to fill a 6,000 gallon tank. I mean, you want it to
Well, they got the
fill.
hydrant right now, they can fill that 6,000 gallon tank, I don't know how long it takes, but it doesn't take very long.
Yeah, well, I'm just talking about the weed guys. And,
Oh, well, that's, yeah, you're only talking about a couple hundred gallons there.
yeah, so you could set it up so you could do it anyway you wanted it.
And then also too on that too is, it's gonna be a recycle station too, so that we can set up, we're gonna try to figure out, and we were working on this, but it'll also be a place where the farmers and the community members can bring their herbicide containers and store them, so that we can get a recycle program going too, so. That's another way that little facility right there, that little thing, you know, is giving back to the community too.
Good point, thank you. Mhm.
How much area do you think you'd need then to be able to accommodate the farm and ranchers?
Well, if we had a kind of a fenced-in area with a light top or whatever, probably a 10 by 10 facility. The big thing is that right now we have no place, you know, and the farmers and stuff, and myself, we're responsible for rinsing it before we bring it in. They can't recycle anything with residuals on it. Right now, we have no way of doing that. So when they do come in with recyclables for the farmers and ranchers, a problem that we have a lot of times is they don't have them properly rinsed. So they come in, take time out of their days, they bring the stuff in, recycle people say no, goodbye. Whereas if we work it in, if it is that case where it's not rinsed, we can rinse it right there and throw it in, or they can bring it in and we can, you know, throw in their containers, and then as the guys come through to recycle it, we can rinse them right there on site and not have to, you know, specifically schedule and do this and do that. You know, we can have it all set there where people can bring in their containers, and then as recycle guys come in, we can have it taken care of.
Another thing too with the fire and redundancy, it never hurts to be planning ahead. Yes, there's the facility to fill the fire trucks in town right now, but it never hurts to be thinking the what ifs. Should we have a redundant system? Yeah, we should. Is it something we're gonna go out and do automatically? Probably not, but if we're already doing something, to have that as part of it, I think just makes sense. It's just future planning.
Mhm.
So,
Well, it just depends on, you know, what these guys need. The cost is not substantial to have that. If you need it. The other part that I did not mention is the chemical storage area would be kind of separate from the large building, and that would be where Mike Myers would come in to frame something in, insulate it, and get it ready for the chemical storage. I think I've talked to him about that, and he seems to be more than capable of doing that. That would be the one area where he would come in and do that.
and that would give
Important in all
our,
the considerations, I know he's got a very full plate too, so.
so really it's our benefit that that's what he likes to do.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's one of the more expensive aspects of what he does to contract that out. One other thing with the chemical, we have such a limited space that both our weed and mosquito districts cannot utilize their purchasing ability and maximize that to get lower prices because they're maxed out on space. So if we had a facility where they could actually buy in bulk, they're saving money.
And I get questions all the time too, of people wanting me to do a cost share program with them. You know, I'm not gonna compete against like Townsend and Seed and some of these others, but I turn a lot of business away because I don't have a facility to keep it up. I've got $8,000 worth of chemical coming in tomorrow. I really don't know where I'm gonna put it, but probably in the place that it shouldn't be stored, but probably go in my bay.
So thank you for all your work on this, Sean. We'll see you next week then.
Okay. Sounds
Any
good.
last minute comments or questions? All right, thank you.
You bet.
Thanks, Sean.
All right. With that, it is 12:15, our 11:30 meeting is canceled, so we will break for lunch. And I will see you all at 1:30. Thanks.